The story of Arizona's Empire Ranch is a tale of four families, a land development company, a mining company, a government agency, and a nonprofit organization. This historic ranch is located in the heart of the 45,000-acre Las Ciénegas National Conservation Area just north of Sonoyta. The first family came on the scene in November 1875. Envision 23-year-old Walter Lennox Vail in Tucson's Cosmopolitan Hotel, writing to his younger brother, Edward Ned Vail. Walter, originally from New Jersey, traveled to Tucson from California to explore the possibility of making his fortune by ranching in southern Arizona. I reached this place 3 days ago, pretty well tired out, but considering the trip, I think I was in pretty good condition when I reached Tucson. I have been trying ever since I came here to hire horses for a trip through the country, but have not been able to do anything until this morning, which was to buy a mule. I was very much disappointed after I got here to find that it is impossible to buy any land. Unless you find a man who has been on his ground for 3 years, his title is of no account, and as the country is all new on account of the Indian trouble, such places are very hard to find. Walter was most favorably impressed by what he saw. I feel positive from all I hear that there is as fine grassland in this territory as there is in the world. I think myself that it is destined to be one of the richest states in the Union. It wasn't until the following year, 1876, that Walter was able to return to Arizona with sufficient funds and a partner, Englishman Herbert L. Hislop, to embark on his ranching venture. In August, they purchased for $2,000 a 160-acre homestead owned by Edward Fish and Simon Silverberg. Included in the purchase price was a 4-room, flat-topped adobe house. A central breezeway, or zaguan, bisected rooms of the house and led to an adjoining adobe wall corral. In October of 1876, John Harvey, another Englishman born in Bermuda, joined the partnership, contributing much-needed capital for additional land and stock. Thus the Vail, Hislop, and Harvey Company began, though it was most often referred to as the English Boys' Outfit. The homestead included a much-valued and critical component to ranching, dependable water from the Cienega Creek. Yet the partners knew that in order to succeed, they must expand their stock and land holdings. Their first purchase was the neighboring ranch, which included a quarter section of land and a flock of sheep. In January of 1877, they purchased 733 cattle near Benson, Arizona, and disposed of the sheep. Later that year, Walter traveled to John Chisholm's ranch in New Mexico and purchased 40 Durham bulls. The first of the English boys to depart in 1878 was Herbert Hislop. He never adjusted to the rigors of frontier life and was worried about financial matters at home. In a letter to his sister, he expressed concerns about the lack of peace with his neighbors. Walter purchased Hislop's shares with money borrowed from his Aunt Anna Vail, and the corporate name was changed to the Vail and Harvey Company. In 1879, during a tour of the ranch's northern pastures, prospector and Empire Ranch cowhand John Dillon pointed out some likely silver-bearing formations in the Empire Mountains. Vail, Harvey, and Dillon registered a claim for the Total Wreck mine, which proved highly successful. Developed in partnership with Walter's uncle Nathan Vail, the Total Wreck mine began full operations in 1883 under the direction of Ned Vail. At its peak, the Total Wreck mining camp boasted over 50 residences and commercial establishments. Revenue from the mine, over $500,000 between 1881 and 1887, fueled the expansion of the ranch. John Harvey left the partnership in 1881, selling his shares to Walter, who continued to develop and expand the business in partnership with other Vail family members as the Empire Land and Cattle Company. That same year, Walter returned to New Jersey to marry his longtime sweetheart, Margaret Newhall, and bring her to live on the Empire Ranch. Margaret chose to live at the ranch full-time, instead of setting up a home in Tucson, as was often the custom. The Empire was the first home for 6 of Walter and Margaret's 7 children. As the Empire Ranch expanded, so did the buildings at the ranch headquarters. By 1882, the original 4 rooms of the ranch house had grown to 22. Rooms for offices and staff were added behind the original 4-room structure. A gabled-roofed Victorian addition became the family home, and outbuildings were constructed to support ranching operations. A little more than 10 years after starting the empire, Walter began to look for pastures in Southern California to ease overgrazing concerns. To fund this expansion, he took on a new partner, Carroll W. Gates. By the early 1890s, when drought greatly affected southern Arizona, the importance of the California landholdings was clear. The Empire Ranch became a breeder operation that supplied the ranches in California. In 1896, the Vail family moved their home and business offices to Los Angeles. Management of the empire was initially left under the direction of his foreman, Haddon V. McFadden. Harry Hefner managed the Empire Ranch from 1902 to 1905. Ironically, after surviving the Apache Wars and the hardships of remote ranching life in southern Arizona, Walter Vail's life was cut short when he was killed by a streetcar in Los Angeles in 1906. Walter's 17-year-old son, William Banning Vail, was sent to Arizona to learn the business and eventually take over operations of the empire. Banning married a native Tucsonan, Laura Perry, in 1913, and they raised 3 children on the Empire Ranch. Laura, known as Dusty, William, known as Bill, and Tom. Banning and his family lived on the ranch until 1928, when our second family, the Boyces, came on the scene. The Empire Ranch was purchased by the Chiricahua Ranches Company, successor to the well-known Chiricahua Cattle Company. The 3 Boyce brothers, Henry, Charles, and Frank, were respected ranchers known for their promotion of the Hereford breed of cattle in the Southwest. Frank Boyce and his wife Mary moved to the Empire Ranch in 1929, while the other brothers managed nearby operations that the family had purchased at the same time. Frank and Mary became sole owners of the empire in 1951. Frank managed the empire for 28 years until his death in 1956. An engineer with degrees from Occidental College and MIT, he liked nothing better than building or repairing ranch equipment. He served as president of the Arizona Cattle Growers Association from 1935 to 1936 and was elected to the Cowboy Hall of Fame in 1958. Mary Boyce participated in all facets of ranch life, including roundups, sorting, and shipping. Mary was also an avid and talented gardener. The house was surrounded by a lush lawn bordered with flower beds of tulips, irises, and roses. Huge trees provided ample shade. During the Boyce period, rooms in the Victorian portion of the house were remodeled. Propane, and eventually natural gas, was piped into the house. A large electric walk-in refrigerator unit was installed, plumbing was upgraded, and cement stucco was applied to the exterior house walls. A swimming pool was installed south of the house and became the focal point for family gatherings and parties. During these years, the Boyces hosted numerous film stars, including John Wayne, as Hollywood romanticized the West in films such as Red River. Frank and Mary had 2 sons, Frank, known as Pancho, and Robert Grantham, known as Bob. As Pancho and Bob became adults and helped to manage the ranch, additional accommodations were required. A surplus house from the Army base at Fort Huachuca was purchased and installed west of the main house. Bob and his wife Miriam lived there and called it Bob's Casita. 2 of Bob and Miriam's 4 children were born during the time they lived on the empire. In 1956, the family moved to their own ranch in Globe, Arizona. Pancho and his wife Sherry initially made their home in the small Grove house located northwest of the ranch house. In the early 1950s, they moved to a newly constructed house on the hill north of the original ranch house. Pancho and Sherry raised 4 children, Steve, Kitty, Sherry, and Carol, on the empire. In 1969, the Boyces sold the Empire Ranch to Gulf American Corporation, which planned a large residential community development on the Empire. Gulf American contracted with Pancho Boyce to continue managing the Empire under lease arrangements. Pancho's son Steve took over sole responsibility for ranching on the Empire after Pancho's untimely death in 1973. Thankfully, Gulf America's development plans were not realized, and in 1975, they sold the Empire to Animax Mining Company. Animax discontinued the Boyces' grazing lease on the Empire. Enter our third family, the Donaldsons. Animax leased the Empire to rancher John Donaldson. John's son, Mac, and his wife, Billy, moved to the Empire to partner with John. Both Donaldson families, including Mac and Billy's children, Alexa, Sam, and Renee, lived on the Empire until 1988. In 1988, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management acquired the Empire Ranch headquarters and surrounding 42,000 acres through a series of land swaps, creating the then-named Empire Cienega Resource Conservation Area. Legislation signed in December 2000 redesignated the lands as the Las Ciénegas National Conservation Area, assuring their preservation. John and Mac Donaldson and Mac's son Sam continued their grazing lease with the BLM until 2009, when our fourth family, the Tomlinsons, assumed the lease. The Tomlinson family owned the Vera Earl Ranch Incorporated, which borders the Empire Ranch on the west, and was established in 1968 by Burton and Betty Ann Beck. Ranching operations are managed by Ian Tomlinson, a grandson of the Becks. He and his wife Kristen and daughters Marin and Addison live in Sonoyta. The historic ranch buildings, unoccupied since 1988, had deteriorated and required help to save them. In 1998, a group of private citizens working in partnership with the BLM formed the Empire Ranch Foundation, or ERF, as a volunteer 501c3 charitable organization. The Empire Ranch Foundation is dedicated to preserving and interpreting the Empire Ranch historic buildings and surrounding landscape for future generations. Within a year of its establishment, the foundation had become heavily involved in preservation work as part of its partnership and assistance agreement with the BLM. A Save America's Treasures matching grant launched a major project to perform critical emergency repairs to deteriorated foundations, walls, and roof systems in the main ranch house. The federal grant funds were fully matched with private funding raised by the foundation, and BLM provided over $100,000 additional funding. Next, emergency repairs to important outbuildings were undertaken. Work on the stone corral included anchoring the roof, installing new support posts, and repointing deteriorated mortar. The historic adobe hay barn repairs straightened and sealed huge cracks in 2 leaning walls and a gable, restored eroded foundations, repaired a falling corner, and tied down the roof. At the hired man's house, deteriorated east wall foundations and brick buttresses were corrected and foundations were strengthened. The south barn was replumbed and rebraced to correct leaning, and missing metal roofing was replaced. In 2007, attention returned to the ranch house, where the foundations of the west wall of the master bedroom and bath of the Victorian addition were repaired, and the lintel and gable were reinforced and anchored. Subsequently, old carpet, asbestos tile, and linoleum in the living, dining room, and kitchen were removed. The lintel at the south end of the zaguan was reinforced by the installation of a steel beam in 2010. In 2011, the Huachuca House was rehabilitated to serve as a welcoming visitor contact station, housing a gift shop and providing space for the foundation. In 2015, a project to seismically stabilize the adobe hay barn was completed. The sliding door on the south side of the hay barn was rehung in 2017. In 2017, the Empire Ranch House Stabilization Project began to reinforce the foundations in several areas, secure the tops of the walls for structural strength, repair interior and exterior wall surfaces, replace the roof on the Victorian addition, and rehabilitate the children's addition to make it safe for visitors. The project was completed in summer 2018. A corps of dedicated volunteers, with training and supervision from BLM staff, has devoted hundreds of hours to smaller preservation projects. Volunteer days are held the first Saturday of most months. BLM and the Foundation work together for cultural resources preservation and adaptive reuse and interpretation. Through this partnership, we have researched the history of the ranch, developed plans for its preservation and interpretation, and have driven the implementation of those plans through hands-on work, grant writing, and raising funds. All told, the Foundation has contributed over $500,000, and the BLM's Deferred Maintenance Program has contributed nearly $2.5 million for preservation work to restore the ranch house and the other 7 buildings at the headquarters. The Foundation's education program was launched in 2004, when 45 students and 4 teachers from a Tucson middle school traveled to the ranch for an intensive day of learning. Since that time, the annual Education Day has hosted hundreds of middle school students. The students have learned about ranching heritage through demonstrations from BLM staff and local ranchers and cowboys. Wild About the Grasslands, the Foundation's highly acclaimed ecology and ranching heritage youth education and outreach program, was offered from 2007 to 2014 with funding provided by the BLM from its Hands on the Land program. In order to achieve our preservation and education mission, it is essential to build public awareness and a strong membership. With the assistance of Empire Ranch Foundation volunteers and BLM staff, the Foundation sponsors events to raise public awareness, funds, and friends. Our annual Cowboy Festival, typically held on the first Saturday of November, draws more than 2,000 visitors who come to the ranch to enjoy Western heritage demonstrations, arena and livestock exhibits, cowboy cooking, and Western entertainment. A spring trail ride provides an opportunity to experience the beauty of the Empire Ranch and Las Ciénegas National Conservation Area. Each summer, the Empire Ranch Foundation celebrates classic Western movies with outdoor showings at the historic Empire Ranch. On the 4th Saturday in July, the Foundation celebrates the National Day of the Cowboy at the historic Empire Ranch. On the second Saturday in December, we enjoy welcoming guests to the decorated Empire Ranch House for a bit of holiday cheer and some fun shopping. An active history, archives, and publications program is documenting and promulgating Empire Ranch history through interpretive exhibits in the ranch house. Docent-led walking tours of the historic Empire Ranch House are offered on the second and fourth Saturday of every month. Print and online publications, oral histories, and the preservation of Empire Ranch historical materials also help to tell the story. Membership in the Empire Ranch Foundation provides vital support for the continued historic preservation of the Empire Ranch. For more information, please visit our website or give us a call. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation on the Empire Ranch.